I have something to share with you guys that you probably will not like, but it's better to get prepared than not. So in this video, I want to focus on job loss, in particular during recessions, just in case we're heading into one in the next year or two. And in this video, I'm here to encourage you to take your career under your own control and get prepared in advance. So even though there are many financial blunders made by the largest and richest American agencies, politicians, and employers, and consumers as well, who were kind of partners in crime and all this, it's people who suffered the most in the end, who lost their jobs, who lost their pensions, and the most vulnerable ones lost means to have a sustainable basic standard of living. Today, America is experiencing unhealthy rising inflation, and you probably feel it when you fill your car with gas, when you track your basic expenses like groceries rising between 6% to 20%, and make matters worse, a sudden and ongoing war in Eastern Europe involving Ukraine and Russia that is not clear how and when it's gonna end, may even potentially turn into a third world war, or a huge country like Russia nearing economic default. US companies may well be vulnerable to continue their operations and keep up with the rising costs. And again, as the 2008 financial crisis proved, businesses or politicians cannot guarantee you a job. And it's naive to suppose that they care about each person individually, because unfortunately every person will remain alone, struggling and facing their own challenges. However, the good news here is that with 2008 economic recession, not everyone lost their jobs. Essential industries remain stable, and there are always outliers gaining from any crisis. Recently, large employers like Google said that they will not match current inflation rates and increase employees' salaries to match the inflation. And Google, of course, faces attrition risk, but on the other hand, the company will be a fool to let the base salary match the inflation, because the compensation structure will be overpriced. In other words, it will become too expensive. According to the Google CEO and the board, in general, they are not ready to share their own profits with the employees that they hire, and rather than keeping jobs, they will let people go. Simple as that. Always happened like that, and Google knows that, and Google doesn't want to let people go. So if salary structure continues to spiral out of control, smaller firms will be unable to pay their employees base salaries just in a couple of years, I guess. So if Google is not ready to provide permanent placements matching salaries with inflation, so who can? So what's the solution? Let's look at some unpopular ways you can take to prepare for a potential recession and not become unemployed in the next year or two, and how to make sure you try your best to control the part that you can control. So the first step that you can take is to get a permanent full-time employment. Having permanent full-time job will not only assist you to avoid being dismissed when your contract expires compared to the contracted employees, but you will also be eligible for all the unemployment benefits and the layoff packages. That is also negotiable, by the way. Depending on your position and years of services, you can try to extend the number of weeks covered with the severance pay, the way it is paid out, what happens to your company stocks if you own it. So can you continue using company equipment and so on, and think about how to pay fewer income taxes as a result of all those scheduled pays that you will get at once. Speaking of lost income shock that is experienced by 2/3 of laid off employees, one of the ways to provide a safety cushion is to take care of your own finances. I'm not a personal finance channel, but here are 3 smart things that you can do to prepare for a recession. So first, pay off your credit card debt, then build an emergency fund to cover your necessities for the next 6 months or so, and finally start diversifying your revenue incomes. And this is very important, guys, securing your money first. Another way to prepare is to find out ahead of time which companies are recession proof and employ professionals like you. So for that, I invite you all to study financial status of every company that comes to your mind and figure out which companies have fewer layoffs or losses than the rest of the businesses. Government jobs are extremely secure at times of economic disruptions, so pay attention to those agencies. So it's best to start early and keep an eye on the open roles if you believe your job security prospects are dwindling at your current workplace. And in case the worst happens, you should network with managers and recruiters and possibly meet them in person, and that should be done in advance. So researching a potential employer before gloomy days arrive will help you understand whether the new management team is working well, what is the future growth drivers look like for that company, and what is the company's position in the competitive market in its own industry. Psychologically, people hate uncertainty because they fear it, and people panic and scorn their employers, blaming them for the best years that they have given to them. So therefore, selecting a stable employer who sits on a pile of cash and reserves indirectly speaks about your job security there. Get your watch list ready so you know the intrinsic value of those companies you like and who to contact before layoffs start. Now, I'm not saying that strong employers are completely safe from downsizing, but at least a company like Facebook, for example, having all the troubles that any corporate giant may imagine, with all the courts and investors wiping out from Facebook recently, but the company is still positive on some breakthrough projects that they're working on. And because such companies refocus on something bigger than their past projects, and they're public and it's easy to find out, they need people, and they definitely have money to invest into those new projects and pay whatever is needed to attract skilled professionals. So moving on to the next step, I wanted to talk about the importance of controlling your emotions that influence your behavior. When the recession is coming, employees freak out and want to work harder and suddenly show their commitment to the employer. They take initiatives and become visible. They become suddenly polite and helpful. But if you haven't done so in the past, it's useless to start when you notice that something is going wrong in the company and when you notice that some of your colleagues have been axed a week earlier. So even if it's not what you used to do before, even if you think that you were overqualified to do some extra tasks, just help the company and don't wait for an additional pay. Talking about visibility, I want you to know that being visible is crucial at times of recession. So you cannot be quietly brilliant. By being truly brilliant, possessing all the knowledge and being super smart, if you're humble and silent, it's just a half that will help you to win. You will lose the battle to those who are also putting extra efforts just like you to stay, internally competing with you to have that employment contract not terminated. As I'm talking about this case, this reminds me of 2009 HTC Samsung battle. Samsung was watching HTC for some time. HTC was the first and the best Android phone developer, but Samsung did their homework by making the same high-quality products and then smashed HTC by launching aggressive marketing efforts that wiped off HTC's market share very quickly, resulting in HTC's gradual demise. HTC, of course, still exists, but they are no longer producing the best smartphones, and because the market has their own preferences. So I really hope you will not get too scared of any recession. And now I want to talk about getting closer to decision makers in the team and becoming helpful to the right people during the rainy days. So volunteering for key committees that are close to the division head or CEO's heart and making the effort to bond with them is something not all employees would dare to think about, not to mention to act upon. If bringing a new client or getting the best for your client so that they are happy to work with your firm, if this is the core of the business, Brainstorm and share your ideas on how the company may optimize processes thanks to the new initiatives, instead of relying on decisions and judgments of your manager who may be in the same position as you are. People also think that keeping their job is what it's all about, but sometimes a layoff is unavoidable and even necessary. And don't get me wrong here, but businesses transform quickly and they get rid of those they don't need anymore. And this is something that you can put in your agenda as well. So work for those who are stable yet promising, and don't solely depend on your corporate income. Stay educated on the job market and career trends. If you found this video useful, like it and sub the channel. This helped me grow too, guys, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.